Good morning and welcome to Q&A Live number 2. And my name is Mark, as you know. And pardon the wet head, just come in freshly showered from my morning 10-mile run. Yeah, right. I haven't run a step since I got out of the Army in 92. Okay, so this morning's video was on reducing machining times in 3D carvings. And I know it was kind of a cop out, more or less, to say reduce the surface area of what you're attempting to carve. And it may seem kind of like a no brainer to some, but I have gotten a lot of questions about just that subject from folks who are carving a small 3D area, say maybe 3 inches by 2 inches, in an overall project that's 26 inches long and 18 inches tall. And there's just no need to carve the entire surface of the material. It's more efficient to go ahead and put some vectors around that 3D carving and just pocket anything else. It works a heck of a lot easier, works a heck of a lot faster. As I mean, you can run a pocket in 20 minutes where it would take 2 hours, 3 hours, or more to go ahead and 3D carve the entire thing. Because as I said, we all want detail and we all want those real tiny bit diameters. I mean, I'm talking to folks who have tapered ball nose bits that are a quarter of a millimeter tip diameter. And that's just teeny tiny. So with a 9% step over on a quarter of a millimeter tip diameter, it's going to take forever to try to carve something 18 inches tall. So let me say howdy to the folks out here in the live chat before we get going, and thanks for dealing with all of my miscues and fumbles here. We're looking at, oh, look, David Krause. Dave Gatton, the big man himself, is here. Jeff Marks, Thomas Grimm, Mervyn Schumacher. Thanks for being there, Mervyn. I appreciate it. Chad M., Jim Dearborn, Dexter Butler, William Cobb, JG. Howdy, JG. And Mr. Marcel. How you doing this morning? Well, it's technically afternoon now, I guess. So, does anybody have any questions based on today's video? Anything I didn't cover or covered too much or didn't spend a lot of time on? See, Chad M says totally agrees with that, especially when you're using a brush router. Cut times are crucial. Yeah, if you're using a standard router, uh, they I got to tell you, I wish I had a spindle. The main reason I don't have a water cooled spindle is because I don't have 220 in that shop. It's something that I hope to break ground on a new shop next spring. I said that last year. We'll see if it happens this year. And a water cooled spindle is one of the things I want to add. I'm kind of going back and forth between water cooled and air cooled. I don't know which way I want to go yet. But yeah, if you're running a router, 8, 9, 10, 11 hour carve, that can put a little bit, that could put a little bit of stress on it and just make you have to buy brushes that much longer or that much earlier, excuse me. Let's see, Dave Gatton, how long have Fred and Hazel been dating? Ever since Wilma split with Dash Riprock, she had a fling going, and just, Pebbles and Bam Bam got hitched and they split. So she's out of the scene, and Hazel popped up, and, Fred, he said, I yabba dabba do. But, okay, that was bad even for me. It's been a while. It's been a while. Actually, Dave, I had a whole file made up with that kind of stuff Fred and Wilma and all the other. Then I thought, nah, I'm sure to get a copyright strike because somebody at Hanna-Barbera doesn't have a sense of humor. So, yeah, I wish them all the best as well. You know, things just were never the same after they had to put Dino down. Okay, that was a downer. That was bad. So, but are there any questions at all on the video on any of those topics I covered? Basically, creating a vector around the 3D model and carving that area out, using a little bit of an overlap that's quite a ways out from the 3D model so you don't have to get up in there with your sanding. Speaking of sanding, I got a little tip for you here. These little radial 3M sanding brushes for the Dremel are really, these are the thing. These are the critter. They're a little bit pricey. 24 of them on Amazon ran me about, oh boy. See, these yellow ones are the 80 grit, and they ran me about 25 bucks for 24 of them. And then the little white ones are right at $30 for 24 of them. But oh man, are they ever fantastic. The grits are a little bit misleading in that the 80 grit you would think would just tear up a carving. They really don't. I mean, I wouldn't go above, say, 220. So, okay, I got folks saying, yeah, the video was good, seemed pretty clear, at least until I try it. Well, I tell you, Thomas, all of this comes from experimenting on scrap. And before I grab, like I carved that out of mahogany, and before I go spending money on good material, I experiment on fence boards that folks are getting rid of on the Craigslist free section. I know I keep bringing it up, but it's the truth. I mean, I'd rather mess up something that somebody was getting ready to throw away than something that I had to pay money for. So it's just experiment here, experiment there. My camera decides to go out of focus. Experiment here, experiment there, and when you get everything dialed in, you'll know it when it's right, and then you can just keep plugging away. But I mean, that's the first tip I would give anybody, is hit that Craigslist free section or the equivalent if you're not in the States. And, folks are throwing out wood things all over, and I don't care what kind of wood it is. I'll cut up pine, fir, cedar, whatever. If it's going to go into a landfill, it can get ground up in my shed. So, okay, do we have any other questions? Any questions at all? Doesn't even have to be about the video this morning. If not, this will be a real short Q&A. So, can I add the reference for the sanding brushes to the header of the post? I can put links in the description to the two I got. They do not. Chad wants to know, do those discs, do they leave a residue of color on the material? So far, I have not noticed any. Now, the 120 are white. The 80 grit are yellow. I believe the 220 are red. But I have not noticed any residue. And I used the yellow on some very hard maple, so that may not be a good judge. When I made the two Paradise boxes for my granddaughters, I used the 80 grits to sand those. And I didn't notice any residue on the material. But even if there was a little bit of residue, a person could go back with a little bit of 320 sandpaper and clean that up. But other than that, I haven't noticed any. Now, again, when you get into the higher grits, like the 400s are, I think they're blue, that's mainly for polishing. So I don't even go that high. 220 would be about the max. Now, I've got 80 and 120, and that's about it. So, again, I haven't noticed any residue. But then again, your mileage may vary. It also, they suggest that you run about 16 to 20,000 RPM, because I got a max RPM on them of 32,000. So if you run about a 16 to 20,000 RPM, maybe they're just spinning them too fast. I don't know. I haven't noticed any residue at all. So, okay, Bishop 178 says, I find that the tool paths are all over the place. Is there any way to remedy that? The tool paths are all over the place in what way? Meaning that will carve an area, then lift up and go over to another area and carve it and then come back? Or was you reference to something else? Jim Hester says the video is great. I'm not ready for 3D yet, but I'll certainly study it again first. Yeah, if you're using VCarve or Aspire, you can import a 3D model and just get going, you know. Okay, Bishop says, okay, he had a project with lots of little pockets all over the place. It did them all, but in a random order. Okay, yeah, you can... let me bring up Aspire here. Let's see if I can remember how to do this now. I believe I went like so. And I'll bring up Aspire. When you get over here into, let's say, the pocket toolpath, I'll look at this pocket. You get down here, I'll do a separate video on this. You'll get down here to use vector selection order. You can decide which order the toolpath will run in. Meaning you'll select the order of the vectors you want it to machine and it will go in that order. I will do a video on that. In fact, that's a good idea for next week. So let me write that down. Vector selection order. All right, now we'll do that. So also another thing to consider is the start point of your vectors, because if you'll notice on a few of my videos, I will change a start point to that bottom left corner when I'm in node editing, and that's because I set my X, Y, and Z 0 down at the bottom left corner of my material, and the bit will lift up and move over to the start point of the first vector it's going to cut. Well, the closer you put that start point, the less of a rapid time you have. So it doesn't make any sense to lift up from the corner of your material and go all the way across the material and then work its way back. You can just pick up and start cutting immediately. So if you set your start points the closest you can get them to your home position, and then select the vectors in a specific order, you can help keep it from hopscotching all over the place. Now, some of that also is calculated in the software just to make what they consider to be more efficient use of machine time. So, for instance, if you're cutting 4 pockets and it's going to take 3 steps to get down to your final depth, it will start on the first pocket, machine down to that first step, go to the next pocket, cut it down to that first step, and go through all 4, Then it'll go down to the next step, cut all four, then to the next step and cut all four. They consider that to be more efficient use. I don't know how, but, you know. Anyway, I will do a video on that. It may be up next week. I'm not sure. Let's see. I've had them advertised. It's nice to hear your take on the sanding discs. I've seen them advertised as the best thing since sliced bread, but then everything except sliced bread is advertised that way. Yeah, I'm with you, Jim Hester. When I first tried them, I didn't like them. You need to use a light touch with them because they will wear down. I mean, they're only a 1-inch diameter. You can get larger ones for use on a drill. I mean, they come up all the way up into like 6-inch discs, but they're pretty pricey. The 1-inch model and it comes with the arbor. At least the kit I ordered came with the arbor, and they're for use in a Dremel, so they spin at a much faster RPM, and they will wear down quick. So you got to use a light touch. Otherwise, I mean, and you stack them 3 on the arbor, so you're going through 3 discs at once. And the first time I used them, I think I burned through them, in like 5 or 6 minutes. I'm like, are you crazy? Then I did a little bit of looking into them, turned down my RPM and used a lighter touch, and that was much, much better. So, let's see. Jim Hester also said, glad you mentioned the Paradise boxes. Did I use the hinge the author recommended? Yes, I did. And I know they're a little bit difficult to find. I'm not going to promise because I got to make sure that it's still available. But I have a bookmark on another computer that I'll dig out. If that bookmark is still valid, I will link to those hinges. They're inexpensive. I mean, I bought a package of 5 of them because I thought I was going to be making more of those boxes, and they came in handy. They are a little bit difficult to find. They're not expensive, but I did use those. Let's see. We got Restorer 66. I believe that's Jeff. I'm wondering whether the DeWalt 611's routers were ever designed to run as long as the cut file was to begin with. What is your take on that? I've never used a DeWalt 611, but so I really can't comment on that. I doubt it was designed to be run that long, but so long as it's unobstructed and you've got air cooling, air flowing through the router and cooling it, you should be okay. I mean, I use a Porter cable 890 series, and the longest run I've had so far has been right at 13 hours, and it cut without a problem. Having said that, I keep a spare set of brushes on hand because you never know. And about once a month I'll pull the top off and look and see how much brush I have left. And I'm about ready to swap them out. If I have another long carve of more than, say, about 2 hours, I'm going to end up swapping them out. So I probably should go ahead and just swap them out anyway. But, yeah, I don't know that any router was made to be run for that long continuously. But it's all part of the price of admission. I mean, it's just me. That was drilled into my head at a young age. If you've got a tool that uses brushes, have an extra set of brushes on hand, because they're gonna crap out on you at the worst possible moment. So, howdy, Kevin Calhoun jumped in, Mr. Guitar Builder to the Stars. How you doing today? So, let's see, were there any other questions at all about anything? So let me... Did I watch it for the 13 hours? And yes, this is Jeff. Okay. No, I didn't watch it for the 13 hours. I don't remember what I was doing that day. Probably sanding on something. I get a lot of sanding done while the machine is running. And in fact, I've been known to save things to sand. Like the wedding sign that I carved. I'm going to be sanding on it as soon as we end this live stream. So, but what can I say? It's all part of the process. And people think I'm weird because I don't really mind sanding. It's not that I enjoy it, I really don't. But I know it's got to be done, so rather than argue with myself and procrastinate it, I kind of use it to my advantage, you know? It's one of those things where when people see you or hear you sanding, they leave you alone because they think you're going to put them to work. And yes, I will put you to work. So that's my moment of zen. I can think about stuff. Same with mowing the lawn. They hear something running out in the yard, they think you're going to put them to work. So that's my moment of zen. Everybody leaves me alone. I can do my thinking, designing, mental engineering, whatever. So let's see. Can the file I showed be broken down into segments? Yes. Each and every piece of that 3D model from that file today came out of the clip art. So if you have VCarve or Aspire, those wedding rings, that's in the clip art. The banners, it's in the clip art. So it was a simple matter of drag and drop it over into the material, arrange it wherever I want to arrange it. Let me go ahead and bring up Aspire and show you what I'm talking about. I'll go back over here. Whoops, didn't mean to zoom. And we'll go down here into the clip art, double click on clip art. The ribbons and banners, let's see, which ones were they? There's the one, it was either this one or this one. I don't right off the bat remember which one it was that I used. And you just, like I say, click, drag and drop, and that'll place it. Then you can size it and align it wherever you want. And then let's see, objects and people, I think, is where the rings were. Let me look down. I think this was it. Yeah, there they are right there. The wedding rings are right there in the clip art. You may have one copy. Now, since I had VCarve Pro and upgraded to Aspire, the 3D clip is the Aspire file, and the V3M is the VCarve file. So you'll have one or the other. I just happen to have both. So, but let's go back over here to the chat. Okay, Chad M wants to know, how will you finish that sign, stain or paint? For the real sign, which I'll post pictures of on my social media when I get it finished, the client wants, he wants just a clear finish, just a clear coat, and I'll paint the lettering, but he just wants it clear, no stain, just a satin lacquer. So that's what I'm going to do. So, let's see. Oh, okay, Jeff said he meant, can you start and pause and come back later to finish running the file? Theoretically, that is possible to do. There are a few ways of doing it. It's going to depend on how you and your machine get along. I mean, you should be able to pause your controller software. What I do in that case is I'll wait until the bit lifts up out of the material and hit pause. And then leave, turn off the router, leave, come back, turn the router back on, and then start from that line. If you're talking about shutting everything down and then coming back the next day, that's going to depend on how you set your X, Y, and Z zero. It is theoretically possible, but I don't know your machine and I don't know your setup. So that may be something to look into. But yeah, it's hard to say. Theoretically, it is possible. Okay, let's see. Jeff Mark says, I would appreciate a video on 3D combine methods. They are confusing. Are you talking about the different combine modes, how the models interact with one another? Or are you talking about taking separate elements of clip art and combining them into one composite model? I've done videos on both. I put a link in the description of this video to my 3D playlist, and both of those videos are listed there. The titles of them right off the top. Let me look and see what they are. I believe, let's see, assembling the composite model was the concept of composite 3D models and assembling a composite model. And then the combine modes are also talked about in those two videos. There's a list, a playlist, there's a link in the description box below to the 3D modeling for absolute beginners playlist. And both of those videos are listed in that playlist. But yes, I will look at your older videos. Yeah, that's a good idea to do, Jeff. I've got 134 videos currently, and remembering the titles of all of them just is more than this old brain can handle. So I have a hard time remembering what I had for lunch yesterday, let alone the name of a video I made last year. I'm lucky to be walking around without a helmet on some days. Okay, so were there any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap this up. We'll run about a half hour. And that's I think a half hour is a good time to run. Keep it from going overboard. I'll give the chat a chance to kind of catch up here. There's about a 30-second delay from when I say something until it comes up in an answer comes up in the chat. Jeff Marks, I've watched quite a few of your videos. They've been extremely helpful. Thank you very much, Jeff. That means a lot. It really does. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, is that folks pick up enough and build enough confidence in themselves to where they just don't need me anymore. You go on to bigger and better. And Chad M, I'm sorry if this is off topic, but what's up with the laser? Well, the laser is basically gone. It is no more. It was so freight damaged that it could not be repaired, and I sent it back, got a refund, and now I'm just saving my pennies for a bigger, better unit. I'm gonna go with something. The experience I had with that small laser was enough to let me know it was too small. I need something bigger. So that's where we're at right now. I don't have a laser. I'm out of the laser business. Okay, Marcel wants to know, what do you recommend, water-cooled or air-cooled spindle? I'm not sure. I've never used either one, so I have nothing to compare them to. And in fact, I'm going back and forth over which one I want to use. Part of me says go water-cooled. Part of me says go air-cooled. We have such temperature extremes here. I mean, we'll go from 5 degrees below zero to 110, 111. I think the most we've had was 113 degrees Fahrenheit. And so water cooled may or may not be the way to go. I'm thinking air cooled. Then again, I prefer not having that dust blowing all over the place. So Okay, yeah. So basically, I couldn't give you a recommendation. There's a few. There's advantages to both. I know Peter Passuelo uses an air-cooled spindle and he loves it. Dave Gatton and quite a few other folks use a water-cooled spindle and they love them. Dave has a milder climate than I do, meaning the temperature differential is not as much. So I'm really not sure yet which way to go. Thank you very much, Jan. Let's see, Jim Hester. I agree these are better than sending emails back and forth because I can answer directly if I have an answer for you. But folks, remember, I don't know is a valid answer. Okay, and Jeff, I sure look forward to watching your videos on Sunday morning. Thanks for taking the time to make them. Well, Jeff, I'm sincere when I say at the end of every video, thanks for taking the time to watch. I know watching a 35, 45, in some cases 55-minute video, you look at that and you go, oh my God. But, and I understand, I really do. But when you start from square one and explain every step, videos get long. So, oh, Dave, breaking news. My next one may be air cooled. Ooh, I'm going to have to investigate that further and have a chat with him off camera. Huh. How about we leave that as a cliffhanger? Why is Dave going air cooled? We don't know. Howdy, Bob. Howdy, Jim. We're just getting ready to end the stream. I want to thank everybody for your questions. I want to thank everybody for joining me and interrupting your Sunday. I hope y'all are having a good day. I hope I cleared up a few things. And I'm going to get these links to the 3M sanding discs, get them down in the description box. I will look for the link to that hinge for the Paradise box. I should have those links up within the next 10 minutes. If the YouTube gods are good to me, we'll have it all set. So, again, thank you to everyone. Thanks for putting up with my antics and not knowing what the devil I was doing when we first started. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. Y'all take care.